Right now, someone is controlling your life, and you don't even realize it. Someone is pulling your strings, dictating your mood, influencing your decisions, and keeping you stuck in patterns that drain your energy and sabotage your success. That someone could be your boss, your partner, your family, your friends, or even strangers on the internet. But here's the brutal truth. You gave them that power. Every time you let someone else's words ruin your day, every time you obsess over what others think about you, every time you sacrifice your own needs to keep someone else happy, you are handing over your power. You are becoming emotionally dependent. And emotional dependency is the enemy of success, confidence, and inner peace. Most people live their entire lives as emotional slaves. They react instead of respond. They let their happiness depend on external validation. They give away their energy to people who don't deserve it. They become addicted to approval, terrified of rejection, and paralyzed by the fear of disappointing others. This is not strength. This is weakness disguised as caring. But today, that changes. By the time you finish this, you will understand how to emotionally detach from anything that drains your power. You will learn how to become emotionally independent, mentally unshakable, and completely in control of your own energy. You will discover the mindset that allows you to stay calm and focused no matter what chaos surrounds you. This is not about becoming cold or heartless. This is about becoming powerful. This is about taking back control of your mind, your emotions, and your life. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The brutal truth about emotional attachment. The first thing you need to understand is that emotional attachment is not love, it's fear. When you are emotionally attached to someone or something, you are not operating from a place of strength, you are operating from a place of desperate need. You need them to act a certain way for you to feel okay. You need them to approve of you for you to feel worthy. You need them to be happy for you to be happy. This is not connection. This is codependency. Look at your life right now. How many of your emotions are controlled by other people? How often do you feel anxious because someone hasn't texted you back? How many times do you replay conversations in your head, wondering if you said the wrong thing? How often do you change your behavior to avoid conflict or gain approval? If you're honest, the answer is probably more often than you'd like to admit. Here's what most people don't realize. Emotional attachment makes you weak, predictable, and easy to manipulate. When someone knows exactly what buttons to push to get a reaction from you, they have power over you. When your mood depends on their behavior, they control your emotional state. When you need their validation to feel good about yourself, you have made yourself dependent on something you cannot control. The most successful people in the world, the ones who achieve extraordinary things and maintain unshakable confidence, they all have one thing in common. They are emotionally detached from outcomes they cannot control. They don't need anyone's permission to feel good about themselves. They don't need anyone's approval to make decisions. They don't let other people's opinions dictate their actions. Think about the people you admire most. The leaders, the innovators, the ones who seem to operate on a different level. What do you notice about them? They don't react emotionally to criticism. They don't get defensive when challenged. They don't seek validation from others. They operate from a place of inner confidence that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. This is what emotional detachment looks like in action. It's not about not caring. It's about caring about the right things. It's about investing your emotional energy only in what you can control and refusing to waste it on what you cannot. It's about understanding that other people's behavior is a reflection of them, not you. But here's where most people get confused. They think emotional detachment means becoming cold, distant, or uncaring. They think it means cutting off all emotions or isolating themselves from others. This is completely wrong. Emotional detachment is actually the foundation of genuine relationships and authentic connection. When you are not desperate for someone's approval, you can be genuine with them. When you don't need them to behave a certain way for you to feel okay, you can love them without conditions. When you are not attached to specific outcomes, you can be present and enjoy the moment. This is what real strength looks like. The problem is that most people have been conditioned to believe that emotional reactivity is normal. They think that getting upset when someone criticizes them is natural. They think that feeling devastated when someone rejects them is proof that they care. They think that worrying constantly about what others think shows that they are thoughtful and considerate. But all of these beliefs are keeping you trapped. They are keeping you in a state of emotional dependency, where your peace of mind is constantly at the mercy of other people's choices. This is no way to live. This is no way to build success. This is no way to create the life you want. The truth is, emotional attachment is often rooted in childhood conditioning. Maybe you learned that love was conditional on your performance. Maybe you learned that your worth was determined by other people's approval. Maybe you learned that you had to be perfect to be accepted. These early experiences taught you to seek validation externally instead of developing internal confidence. But you are not a child anymore. You have the power to reprogram these patterns. You have the ability to break free from emotional dependency and reclaim your power. You can learn to validate yourself. You can learn to find your worth internally. You can learn to stay calm and centered regardless of what's happening around you. This is what emotional detachment will give you. Complete freedom from other people's emotional manipulation. The ability to make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. Unshakable confidence that doesn't depend on external validation, inner peace that cannot be disturbed by external chaos, the power to choose your responses instead of reacting automatically. But before you can build this emotional independence, you need to understand exactly how you lost your power in the first place. You need to recognize the specific ways that emotional attachment has been controlling your life. Only when you can see the prison can you begin to escape it. Chapter 2. How you lost your power. Let me paint a picture that will probably sound familiar. You wake up in the morning, and the first thing you do is check your phone. You're looking for messages, notifications, likes, comments, anything that will give you a hit of validation. If there's something positive, you feel good. If there's nothing, or worse, if there's something negative, your mood immediately shifts. You get to work and your boss makes a comment that could be interpreted multiple ways. Instead of asking for clarification or simply moving on, you spend the next 3 hours analyzing every word, wondering if you're in trouble, wondering if you did something wrong. Your productivity plummets because your mind is consumed with worry about something that probably means nothing. Later, you're having a conversation with a friend and they seem a bit distant. Immediately, your mind starts racing. Did you say something wrong? Are they mad at you? You start overanalyzing every interaction you've had with them recently, trying to figure out what you could have done to upset them. You consider sending a text to ask if everything is okay, even though you know it will make you seem needy. At the end of the day, you're emotionally drained. Not because you did anything particularly difficult, but because you spent your entire day emotionally reacting to other people's behavior. You gave your power away to your boss, your friend, random people on social media, and anyone else who crossed your path. This is how most people live, and it's exactly why most people feel powerless. The truth is, you didn't lose your power overnight. It was taken from you gradually, through a process of conditioning that taught you to value other people's opinions more than your own. It started when you were young, and you learned that love and approval were conditional on your behavior. You learned that if you acted a certain way, people would be happy with you. And if you didn't, they would be disappointed. This conditioning taught you to constantly monitor other people's reactions and adjust your behavior accordingly. You learned to seek approval and avoid disapproval at all costs. You developed an internal radar that was constantly scanning for signs of rejection or acceptance. Over time, this became so automatic that you probably don't even realize you're doing it. But here's what this conditioning really did. It made you believe that your worth is determined by other people's opinions. It made you think that if someone doesn't like you, there must be something wrong with you. It made you feel responsible for other people's emotions and reactions. It turned you into a people pleaser who sacrifices their own needs to keep others happy. Let's look at some specific examples of how this shows up in your life. In relationships, you probably find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly worried about saying or doing the wrong thing. You might stay in unhealthy relationships because you're afraid of being alone or because you don't want to hurt the other person. You might compromise your values or ignore red flags because you're desperate to be loved and accepted. At work, you probably say yes to everything, even when you're already overwhelmed. You might stay late to finish projects that aren't your responsibility because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You might avoid expressing your ideas or opinions because you're afraid of being judged or criticized. You let other people take credit for your work because you don't want to seem arrogant or self-promoting. In social situations, you probably change your personality to fit in with whatever group you're with. You might pretend to like things you don't actually enjoy because you want to be accepted. You might keep your real opinions to yourself to avoid conflict. You might spend money you don't have to impress people who don't really care about you. With your family, you might let them guilt-trip you into doing things you don't want to do. You might accept disrespectful treatment because you feel obligated to maintain the relationship. You might suppress your authentic self to avoid disappointing them or causing drama. On social media, you probably post things designed to get likes and positive comments. You might delete posts that don't get enough engagement. You might compare your life to others and feel inadequate. You might spend hours scrolling, looking for validation, or getting upset by what others are posting. All of these behaviors have one thing in common. They put your emotional state in other people's hands. They make your happiness, confidence, and peace of mind dependent on factors you cannot control. They turn you into an emotional puppet, dancing to whatever tune other people are playing. The most dangerous part of this pattern is that it becomes addictive. Every time you get validation from others, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical involved in drug addiction. This creates a cycle where you constantly need more approval to feel okay. Just like a drug addict needs bigger hits to get the same high. You need more and more validation to feel worthy. But here's the real kicker. The people whose approval you're seeking often don't even know they have this power over you. They're probably too focused on seeking their own validation to pay much attention to yours. You're giving away your power to people who aren't even aware they have it. This is why emotional attachment is so destructive. It's not just that it makes you weak. It's that it makes you weak for no reason. You're sacrificing your power, your authenticity, and your peace of mind for people who often don't care and relationships that aren't even real. The good news is that once you understand how you lost your power, you can begin to take it back. Once you can see the patterns, you can break them. Once you recognize that you've been living according to other people's rules, you can start writing your own. Chapter 3. The Psychology of Detachment. To truly understand emotional detachment, you need to understand how your brain works. Most of your emotional reactions are not actually responding to what's happening right now. They're responding to past experiences, future fears, and unconscious programming that was installed when you were too young to question it. Your brain has a part called the amygdala, which is responsible for detecting threats and triggering fight or flight responses. This part of your brain developed when humans were living in caves and facing physical dangers on a daily basis. Back then, being rejected by the tribe could literally mean death. So your brain developed powerful mechanisms to avoid social rejection at all costs. The problem is, your amygdala can't tell the difference between a real physical threat and an emotional threat. When someone criticizes you, your brain reacts as if you're being attacked by a wild animal. When someone doesn't text you back, your brain interprets this as potential abandonment, which triggers the same fear response that kept your ancestors alive. This is why emotional reactions feel so intense and urgent. Your brain is literally telling you that your survival is at stake. It's flooding your system with stress hormones and demanding immediate action to eliminate the threat. But in modern life, most of these threats are completely imaginary. Understanding this gives you incredible power, because once you realize that your emotional reactions are often based on outdated programming rather than current reality, you can begin to question them. You can learn to pause and ask yourself, is this reaction appropriate to what's actually happening? Or am I responding to old fears and conditioning? The key to emotional detachment is developing what psychologists call metacognition, which is essentially thinking about your thinking. It's the ability to step outside of your emotional reactions and observe them objectively, like a scientist studying an interesting phenomenon. When you develop metacognition, something remarkable happens. Instead of being swept away by your emotions, you become curious about them. Instead of automatically believing your thoughts, you examine them. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond consciously. This is the foundation of true emotional intelligence. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about understanding them, learning from them, and choosing how to respond to them. Let's break down the difference between attachment and detachment from a psychological perspective. Attachment occurs when you identify with your thoughts and emotions. You believe that you are your thoughts. You think that your emotions are facts about reality, rather than temporary experiences in your consciousness. When you're attached, you might think things like, I am anxious, I am angry, I am sad. But when you're detached, you think, I am experiencing anxiety. I notice anger arising. There is sadness present. This might seem like a small difference in language, but it represents a massive shift in perspective. The first way of thinking makes you the victim of your emotions. The second way makes you the observer of your emotions. When you're the victim, you have no choice but to be controlled by whatever you're feeling. When you're the observer, you have the power to choose your response. Detachment also involves understanding the difference between facts and stories. Most emotional suffering doesn't come from what actually happens. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves about what happens. Someone doesn't call you back, and you tell yourself a story that they don't care about you. Your boss seems stressed, and you tell yourself a story that you're in trouble. A friend cancels plans, and you tell yourself a story that they don't want to spend time with you. These stories feel completely real and true, but they're actually just interpretations. They're one possible explanation for what happened, but there are always other explanations. When you're emotionally attached, you automatically believe the most negative story. When you're emotionally detached, you recognize that you don't actually know what's true until you have more information. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. Instead of being tortured by worst-case scenario thinking, you can simply acknowledge that you don't know what someone else is thinking or feeling. Instead of taking everything personally, you can recognize that other people's behavior is usually about them, not you. Detachment also involves understanding the concept of impermanence. Everything in life is temporary. Your emotions are temporary. Other people's emotions are temporary. Situations that seem overwhelming right now will pass. Relationships that seem permanent will change. Success and failure are both temporary experiences. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop clinging so tightly to temporary experiences. You don't get as high during good times because you know they won't last forever. But you also don't get as low during difficult times because you know they won't last forever either. This understanding creates emotional stability. Instead of being on an emotional roller coaster, constantly swinging between extreme highs and lows, you maintain a steady center. You can experience emotions fully without being overwhelmed by them. You can enjoy positive experiences without being attached to them. You can navigate negative experiences without being destroyed by them. Another key aspect of detachment is understanding that you cannot control other people. This seems obvious, but most people live as if they believe they can influence or manipulate others into giving them what they want. They think that if they just say the right thing, or act the right way, or try hard enough, they can make other people love them, approve of them, or treat them well. But other people have their own conditioning, their own fears, their own agendas, and their own free will. They're going to do what they're going to do regardless of what you want them to do. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you can stop wasting energy trying to control things that are beyond your control. This doesn't mean you become passive or that you don't try to influence positive outcomes. It means you focus your energy on what you can actually control: your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your responses. This is where your real power lies. Chapter 4. The Detachment Mindset Shift. The transformation from emotional dependency to emotional independence requires a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your relationship to the world. This isn't just about changing your behavior. It's about changing your entire identity. You need to stop seeing yourself as someone who needs others to feel complete, and start seeing yourself as someone who is already whole. The first mindset shift is moving from external validation to internal validation. Right now, you probably look to others to tell you if you're good enough, smart enough, attractive enough, or worthy enough. You wait for their approval before you feel confident. You let their criticism determine your self-worth. This is like giving other people the remote control to your emotions. But what if you took that remote control back? What if you became the sole authority on your own worth? What if you stopped asking others to validate you and started validating yourself? This shift requires you to develop an internal reference point for self-worth that is independent of other people's opinions. You need to know, deep in your bones, that you are valuable, regardless of what anyone else thinks. This isn't arrogance or delusion. It's simply recognizing your inherent worth as a human being. Think about it this way. Your worth doesn't change based on whether someone likes you or not. You are the same person whether someone approves of you or rejects you. Their opinion doesn't actually change anything about who you are. It's just information about their preferences, their conditioning, their mood, or their circumstances. When you truly understand this, criticism loses its power to devastate you, and praise loses its power to make you feel superior. Both become just information that you can consider or discard as you choose. The second mindset shift is moving from needing to be liked to being willing to be disliked. Most people are terrified of disapproval. They will sacrifice their authenticity, compromise their values, and betray their own needs just to avoid the possibility that someone might not like them. But here's what they don't realize. Trying to be liked by everyone is a guaranteed way to be respected by no one, including yourself. When you constantly modify your behavior to gain approval, you become a chameleon with no authentic identity. People can sense this desperation, and it actually makes you less likable, not more. The people who command the most respect and admiration are those who are willing to be themselves regardless of whether others approve. They have strong boundaries, clear values, and the courage to stand by their convictions even when it's unpopular. This doesn't mean you should try to be disliked, or that you should be rude or inconsiderate. It means you should be authentic and let other people's reactions be their responsibility, not yours. Some people will love your authenticity. Others will be threatened by it. And that's perfectly okay. The third mindset shift is moving from taking things personally to understanding that everything is about the other person. When someone is rude to you, it's not because you did something wrong, it's because they're having a bad day, or they're dealing with their own issues, or they learned unhealthy communication patterns from their past. When someone rejects you, it's not because you're not good enough. It's because you're not compatible with what they're looking for right now. When someone criticizes you, it's not necessarily because you did something wrong. It might be because they're projecting their own insecurities or because they have different preferences than you do. This understanding is incredibly freeing because it means you can stop analyzing every interaction to figure out what you did wrong. You can stop taking responsibility for other people's emotions and reactions. You can stop trying to be perfect to avoid triggering negative responses from others. The fourth mindset shift is moving from attachment to outcomes to attachment to the process. Right now, you probably measure your success based on specific outcomes, whether you get the job, whether the person likes you back, whether your project succeeds, whether people approve of your choices. But here's the problem with outcome attachment. You can't control outcomes. You can influence them, but there are always factors beyond your control that affect the final result. When you attach your happiness to specific outcomes, you set yourself up for disappointment and anxiety. Instead, attach your satisfaction to things you can control. The effort you put in, the quality of your work, how well you communicate, how authentic you are, how much you learn and grow from the experience. These are things that are entirely within your power. When you shift your focus from outcomes to process, you become more resilient, more confident, and paradoxically, more likely to achieve positive outcomes. You're not paralyzed by the fear of failure because your worth isn't tied to succeeding. You're free to take risks, be creative, and push yourself to grow. The fifth mindset shift is moving from scarcity to abundance. Many of your attachment patterns are rooted in scarcity thinking, the belief that there's not enough love, approval, opportunities, or success to go around. This makes you desperate to hold on to whatever you have and terrified of losing it. But what if you operated from abundance instead? What if you believed that there are unlimited opportunities for connection, success, and fulfillment? What if you trusted that if one person doesn't appreciate you, there are billions of others who might? What if you knew that if one opportunity doesn't work out, there will be others? Abundance thinking makes you more attractive to others because you're not needy or desperate. It makes you more generous because you're not afraid of giving away what you have. It makes you more confident because you're not worried about losing what you currently possess. The sixth mindset shift is moving from being reactive to being proactive. Right now, you probably spend a lot of time reacting to what other people do or say. Someone makes a comment, and you react. Someone doesn't respond to your text, and you react. Someone achieves something you want, and you react. But what if you stopped reacting and started acting based on your own values and goals? What if you stopped letting other people's behavior dictate your mood and started creating your own emotional state? What if you stopped waiting for permission or approval and started taking action based on what you know is right? This shift from reactive to proactive is one of the most powerful changes you can make. It transforms you from someone who is constantly blown around by external circumstances to someone who creates their own direction and momentum. These mindset shifts don't happen overnight. They require consistent practice and a willingness to challenge thoughts and beliefs that have been with you for years. But once you begin to see yourself differently, everything else starts to change. 2. Chapter 5. Breaking the emotional chains. Now that you understand the psychology and mindset behind emotional detachment, it's time to start implementing specific strategies to break free from the emotional patterns that have been controlling your life. This is where the real work begins. And it's not going to be comfortable. Breaking emotional chains requires you to do the opposite of what feels natural. When your instinct is to seek reassurance, you'll need to sit with uncertainty. When your impulse is to people please, you'll need to risk disapproval. When your habit is to take things personally, you'll need to practice emotional distance. This is going to feel strange and scary at first, but it's the only way to build genuine emotional strength. The first strategy is learning to pause before reacting. Right now, there's probably a very short gap between stimulus and response in your emotional life. Someone says something that triggers you, and you immediately react with anger, hurt, anxiety, or defensive behavior. This automatic response keeps you trapped in old patterns. You need to create space between what happens and how you respond. When someone says something that normally would upset you, Instead of immediately reacting, take a deep breath and count to 10. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? Is this feeling based on what actually happened, or is it based on a story I'm telling myself about what happened? This pause gives you the opportunity to choose your response instead of being controlled by your automatic reactions. You might realize that your initial emotional response was based on assumptions rather than facts. You might discover that you're taking something personally that actually has nothing to do with you. The second strategy is developing emotional curiosity instead of emotional judgment. When you notice yourself having a strong emotional reaction, instead of immediately trying to make the feeling go away or judging yourself for having it, get curious about it. What is this emotion trying to tell you? What need or fear might be underneath it? What past experience might it be connected to? This curiosity helps you understand your emotional patterns without being controlled by them. You start to see your emotions as information rather than commands. You begin to recognize the difference between feeling something and being something. For example, instead of thinking, I am anxious, you might think, I notice anxiety arising. I wonder what this anxiety is about. Is there a real threat? Or is my brain just trying to protect me from something that isn't actually dangerous? The third strategy is practicing the art of non-reaction. This is probably the most challenging skill to develop, but it's also the most powerful. Non-reaction means staying calm and centered when others are trying to provoke an emotional response from you. When someone criticizes you, insults you, tries to make you jealous, or attempts to manipulate you emotionally, your goal is to remain completely unaffected. This doesn't mean you ignore them or pretend nothing happened. It means you don't give them the emotional reaction they're looking for. Start practicing this in low-stakes situations. If someone makes a sarcastic comment, don't take the bait. If someone tries to start an argument, don't engage. If someone attempts to guilt-trip you, acknowledge what they said without becoming defensive or feeling guilty. The more you practice non-reaction, the more you'll realize how often people are unconsciously trying to get emotional reactions from others. They're seeking attention, trying to feel powerful, or attempting to validate their own emotional state by getting others to feel the same way they do. The fourth strategy is setting and maintaining clear emotional boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out, they're guidelines that teach people how to treat you. Right now, you probably have very weak boundaries, which means people can manipulate your emotions whenever they want to. Strong emotional boundaries mean you don't accept responsibility for other people's feelings. You don't let other people's moods determine your mood. You don't allow others to guilt-trip or manipulate you. And you don't compromise your values to keep others happy. Start by identifying where your boundaries are currently being violated. Maybe your family members make you feel guilty for not visiting enough. Maybe your friends pressure you to do things you don't want to do. Maybe your coworkers dump their responsibilities on you. Maybe people on social media make you feel bad about your life. Once you identify these boundary violations, you need to start responding differently. Instead of automatically accommodating others, you need to protect your emotional space. This might mean saying no more often, walking away from conversations that drain you, or simply not engaging with emotional manipulation. The fifth strategy is developing a practice of emotional independence. This means learning to fulfill your own emotional needs instead of expecting others to do it for you. If you need validation, validate yourself. If you need comfort, comfort yourself. If you need encouragement, encourage yourself. This isn't about becoming completely self-reliant or never needing anyone else. It's about not being desperate for others to meet your emotional needs. When you can give yourself what you need emotionally, your relationships become much healthier because you're choosing to connect with others rather than needing to. Start by identifying what emotional needs you're currently trying to get met by others. Do you need constant reassurance? Do you need frequent praise? Do you need others to make you feel special or important? Whatever it is, practice giving it to yourself first. The sixth strategy is learning to distinguish between your business, other people's business, and God's business. Your business includes your thoughts, feelings, actions, and choices. Other people's business includes their thoughts, feelings, actions, and choices. God's business includes things like natural disasters, other people's deaths, and events that are completely outside of anyone's control. Most emotional suffering comes from getting involved in business that isn't yours. You worry about what other people think about you, which is their business. You get upset about things that happened in the past or might happen in the future, which is God's business. You try to control how others feel about you, which is their business. When you stay in your own business and let others stay in theirs, you dramatically reduce your emotional suffering. You stop taking responsibility for things you can't control, and you start focusing your energy on things you can actually influence. This process of breaking emotional chains is challenging because it requires you to give up familiar patterns, even when those patterns are making you miserable. Your ego will resist these changes because it's comfortable with being a victim. It knows how to get attention and sympathy through emotional suffering. But on the other side of this discomfort is true freedom. Freedom from needing others to validate you. Freedom from being controlled by other people's moods and reactions. Freedom from taking everything personally. Freedom from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. The question is, are you ready to do the work required to claim this freedom? Chapter 6. Building emotional armor. Most people think that being emotionally strong means never getting hurt. They think that detachment means building walls so high that nothing can touch them. This is completely wrong. True emotional strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about experiencing it without being destroyed by it. It's about developing what I call emotional armor, a protective layer that allows you to engage with the world without losing yourself in the process. Emotional armor isn't about becoming cold or heartless. It's about developing the internal resources to handle whatever life throws at you without falling apart. It's about building resilience so strong that you can walk through emotional fire and come out the other side unchanged. The first component of emotional armor is developing unshakable self-worth. Right now, your self-worth probably fluctuates based on external circumstances. When things go well, you feel good about yourself. When things go poorly, you question your value. This instability makes you vulnerable to manipulation and emotional manipulation. Unshakable self-worth means knowing at your core that you are valuable regardless of what happens to you. It means understanding that your worth is not determined by your achievements, your relationships, your appearance, or anyone else's opinion of you. Your worth exists simply because you exist. This isn't positive thinking or self-help fluff. This is a practical recognition that human worth is inherent, not earned. You don't have to prove your value to anyone. including yourself. You don't have to justify your existence or apologize for taking up space in the world. When you truly internalize this understanding, criticism becomes just information, instead of an attack on your character. Rejection becomes just incompatibility, instead of proof that you're not good enough. Failure becomes just feedback, instead of evidence of your inadequacy. The second component of emotional armor is developing emotional independence. This means learning to meet your own emotional needs, instead of depending on others to do it for you. Most people are emotional beggars, constantly seeking validation, comfort, and encouragement from others. This dependency makes them weak and manipulatable. Emotional independence means becoming your own source of validation. When you achieve something, you acknowledge your accomplishment without needing others to praise you. When you're going through a difficult time, you comfort yourself without needing others to rescue you. When you're facing a challenge, you encourage yourself without waiting for others to motivate you. This doesn't mean you never accept support from others or that you isolate yourself completely. It means you don't need others to provide what you can provide for yourself. You choose to connect with others from a place of strength rather than neediness. The third component is developing mental discipline. Your mind is constantly generating thoughts, many of which are negative, fearful, or destructive. Most people believe every thought that enters their head and react accordingly. This is like being controlled by a radio that you can't turn off. Mental discipline means learning to observe your thoughts without automatically believing them. It means recognizing that thoughts are just mental events, not facts about reality. It means developing the ability to choose which thoughts to focus on and which ones to dismiss. Start by practicing thought awareness. Throughout the day, notice what you're thinking about. Are your thoughts positive or negative? Are they focused on things you can control or things you can't control? Are they based on facts or assumptions? Don't judge your thoughts. Just observe them. Once you develop awareness of your thinking patterns, you can begin to direct your thoughts more consciously. When you notice yourself thinking negative thoughts about yourself, challenge them. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Is it helpful? What would I think instead if I wanted to feel confident and powerful? The fourth component is emotional regulation under pressure. It's easy to stay calm when everything is going well. The real test of your emotional armor comes when you're under stress, facing criticism, dealing with conflict, or experiencing loss. This is when most people's emotional defenses crumble. True emotional armor means staying centered even when everything around you is chaotic. It means maintaining your composure when others are losing theirs. It means responding thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, even in highly charged situations. This skill is developed through practice. Start with small challenges. When someone cuts you off in traffic, practice staying calm instead of getting angry. When someone makes a rude comment, practice not taking it personally. When you don't get something you want, practice accepting the outcome without becoming bitter. The fifth component is developing selective vulnerability. Many people think that being emotionally strong means never being vulnerable with anyone. This is a mistake that leads to isolation and loneliness. The key is learning to be selectively vulnerable, opening up only to people who have earned the right to see your inner world. Not everyone deserves access to your emotions, your fears, your dreams, or your struggles. Most people haven't done the work to handle someone else's vulnerability responsibly. They might use your openness against you, betray your trust, or simply not care about what you share with them. Selective vulnerability means being discerning about who you let into your inner circle. It means sharing your deepest thoughts and feelings only with people who have proven themselves trustworthy, supportive, and emotionally mature. Everyone else gets the public version of you. The sixth component is building a strong internal foundation. This means developing interests, goals, and sources of meaning that don't depend on other people. Many people build their entire identity around their relationships, their career, or their social status. When these external things change or disappear, they feel lost and empty. A strong internal foundation means having a rich inner life that sustains you regardless of external circumstances. It means pursuing interests that fascinate you, regardless of whether others approve. It means setting goals that align with your values, regardless of whether others think they're important. It means finding meaning in activities that fulfill you, regardless of whether others understand. When you have a strong internal foundation, you don't need external validation to feel whole. You're not devastated when relationships end because you have other sources of fulfillment. You're not destroyed by career setbacks because your identity isn't entirely wrapped up in your job. You're not crushed by social rejection because you have internal sources of self-worth. Building emotional armor is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen your emotional resilience. Every difficult person you encounter is a chance to practice non-reaction. Every rejection you experience is a test of your self-worth. The goal is not to become invulnerable, because that's neither possible nor desirable. The goal is to become anti-fragile, meaning you actually become stronger when exposed to stress and challenges. Instead of being broken by difficult experiences, you use them as raw material to build even stronger emotional armor. Chapter 7. The Art of Strategic Indifference. There's a concept that will revolutionize your life once you truly understand it. You don't have to care about everything. In fact, caring about everything is a guaranteed way to drive yourself crazy and waste your precious emotional energy. The most powerful people in the world have mastered the art of strategic indifference, which means choosing very carefully what deserves their emotional investment. Strategic indifference is not about becoming apathetic or uncaring about life. It's about being highly selective about what you allow to affect you emotionally. It's about understanding that your attention and emotional energy are finite resources that should be invested wisely, not squandered on things that don't matter. Most people care about everything equally. They get as upset about a stranger's rude comment as they do about a genuine problem in their life. They spend as much mental energy worrying about what acquaintances think of them as they do planning their future. They react as strongly to minor inconveniences as they do to major challenges. This scattered emotional attention is exhausting and ineffective. It's like trying to light up an entire city with a single light bulb instead of focusing that energy where it can have the most impact. When you care about everything, you care about nothing effectively. Strategic indifference requires you to develop a hierarchy of what matters in your life. At the top of this hierarchy are things that directly impact your well-being, your goals, your values, and the people you truly care about. At the bottom are things that have no real impact on your life, but that you've been conditioned to worry about anyway. Let's start with what doesn't deserve your emotional energy. Other people's opinions of you, unless those people are directly relevant to your life or goals. Random criticism from strangers or acquaintances. Social media drama that doesn't affect you personally. Other people's lifestyle choices that have no impact on you. Past mistakes that you can't change. Future scenarios that may never happen. The list of what you shouldn't care about is much longer than most people realize. You don't need to have an opinion about every political issue, every social controversy, or every celebrity scandal. You don't need to be upset about every injustice in the world or every problem that exists. You don't need to feel guilty about not being involved in every cause or not caring about every issue. This doesn't make you selfish or callous. It makes you focused. It allows you to direct your emotional energy toward things where you can actually make a difference instead of spreading it so thin that it becomes meaningless. Now let's talk about what does deserve your emotional investment. Your personal growth and development. Your closest relationships with family and friends who genuinely care about you. Your goals and dreams that align with your values. Your health and well-being. Issues that directly affect your life or the lives of people you care about. Even within these categories, you need to be selective. Not every goal deserves the same level of emotional investment. Not every relationship requires the same amount of energy. Not every health issue warrants the same level of concern. The key is learning to calibrate your emotional response to match the actual importance of each situation. A minor disagreement with a friend shouldn't generate the same emotional intensity as a major life decision. A small setback in your career shouldn't create the same level of stress as a serious health problem. This calibration requires practice and self-awareness. Most people have poor emotional calibration because they've never consciously thought about it. They react to everything at the same emotional intensity level, which leaves them constantly drained and overwhelmed. Start practicing strategic indifference by consciously choosing not to engage with things that don't deserve your energy. When you see drama on social media, scroll past it instead of getting involved. When someone tries to provoke an argument about something irrelevant, decline to participate. When you catch yourself worrying about something you can't control, consciously redirect your attention to something you can control. One of the most powerful aspects of strategic indifference is learning not to take things personally. Most of the things that happen to you are not actually about you. When someone is rude, it's usually because they're having a bad day, not because you did something wrong. When someone rejects you, it's usually because you're not compatible, not because you're defective. When someone criticizes you, it's usually a reflection of their standards or preferences, not an objective assessment of your worth. Understanding this allows you to maintain emotional distance from other people's behavior. You can observe what they do without absorbing it emotionally. You can respond appropriately without being affected personally. Strategic indifference also involves learning to let go of things quickly. When something negative happens, most people hold on to it emotionally for much longer than necessary. They replay the event in their mind, analyze it from every angle, and continue to feel upset about it long after it's over. But what's the point of continuing to suffer about something that's already finished? What benefit do you get from carrying emotional pain about past events? The answer is none. You're just voluntarily extending your suffering for no reason. Practice letting go quickly. When something negative happens, feel whatever you need to feel in the moment. Then consciously choose to move on. Don't replay it in your mind. Don't analyze it endlessly. Don't carry it with you into the rest of your day. This doesn't mean you ignore important lessons or pretend negative things didn't happen. It means you extract whatever learning is available from the situation, then release the emotional charge around it. Another aspect of strategic indifference is learning to be comfortable with other people's disapproval. Right now, you probably spend enormous amounts of energy trying to avoid making anyone upset with you. You modify your behavior, suppress your opinions, and compromise your authenticity just to keep everyone happy. But here's the truth. It's impossible to please everyone, and trying to do so will only make you miserable. No matter what you do, some people won't like it. No matter how carefully you speak, some people will misunderstand you. No matter how hard you try to be considerate, some people will find something to complain about. Once you accept this reality, you can stop wasting energy on the impossible task of universal approval. You can focus on being authentic and let other people's reactions be their problem, not yours. Strategic indifference is ultimately about emotional sovereignty. It's about taking back control of your inner life and refusing to let external circumstances dictate your emotional state. It's about becoming selectively sensitive instead of universally reactive. Chapter 8. Reclaiming your energy. Energy is your most precious resource, yet most people give it away freely to anyone who asks for it. They let toxic people drain them. They waste it on meaningless activities, and they scatter it across dozens of unimportant concerns. If you want to take back your power, you need to become fiercely protective of your energy and learn to invest it only in things that serve your highest good. Think about your energy like money. You wouldn't give your money to everyone who asks for it, yet you probably give your energy away much more carelessly. You wouldn't spend your money on things that make you worse off, yet you probably invest your energy in activities and relationships that drain you and add no value to your life. Energy management is just as important as financial management, if not more so. When you're emotionally drained, you can't perform at your best. You can't think clearly, make good decisions, or pursue your goals effectively. You become reactive instead of proactive, weak instead of strong, scattered instead of focused. The first step in reclaiming your energy is conducting an energy audit. For 1 week, pay close attention to what gives you energy and what takes it away. Notice how you feel after spending time with different people. Pay attention to which activities leave you feeling energized and which ones leave you feeling depleted. Observe how different environments affect your energy levels. You'll probably discover that certain people consistently drain your energy. These are the people who complain constantly but never take action to improve their situation. They dump their problems on you, but ignore your advice. They create drama wherever they go. They're negative, pessimistic, and emotionally exhausting to be around. You'll also notice that certain activities consistently drain your energy. These might include mindless scrolling on social media, watching too much news, engaging in gossip, or participating in activities that don't align with your values or interests. On the flip side, you'll identify people who consistently give you energy. These are the people who inspire you, support you, challenge you to grow, and make you feel good about yourself. You'll also identify activities that energize you, such as pursuing your hobbies, exercising, learning new skills, or working on meaningful projects. Once you have this awareness, you can begin to make conscious choices about how you spend your energy. This means spending more time with energy-giving people and less time with energy-draining people. It means engaging in more activities that energize you and fewer activities that deplete you. But here's where most people struggle. They feel guilty about protecting their energy. They think it's selfish to avoid negative people or to say no to energy-draining activities. They believe they have an obligation to be available to everyone who wants their time and attention. This guilt is misplaced and destructive. You are not obligated to absorb other people's negative energy. You are not responsible for fixing everyone's problems or being everyone's emotional support system. You are not required to sacrifice your well-being to make others feel better. In fact, protecting your energy is one of the most generous things you can do, because it allows you to show up as your best self for the people and activities that truly matter. When you're energized and emotionally strong, you have more to give to the relationships and pursuits that deserve your investment. Setting energy boundaries means learning to say no without explanation or justification. You don't need to explain why you don't want to attend every social gathering, participate in every conversation, or help with every request. A simple, "No, I can't," is a complete sentence. It also means limiting your exposure to energy vampires. These are people who seem to suck the life out of you every time you interact with them. They're always in crisis, always complaining, always needing something from you but never giving anything back. You don't have to cut these people out of your life completely, but you can limit your exposure to them. Keep conversations short. Don't engage with their drama. Set clear boundaries about what you're willing to discuss and what you're not. Another crucial aspect of energy management is learning to detach from other people's emotions. Many people are emotional sponges, absorbing whatever emotions are present in their environment. If someone around them is anxious, they become anxious. If someone is angry, they become agitated. If someone is depressed, they become sad. This emotional absorption is exhausting and unnecessary. Other people's emotions belong to them, not you. You can be compassionate and supportive without taking on their emotional state as your own. Practice emotional boundaries by consciously choosing not to absorb other people's emotions. When you notice yourself starting to feel whatever someone else is feeling, pause and remind yourself that their emotions are their responsibility, not yours. You can care about their situation without carrying their emotional burden. Energy reclamation also involves eliminating energy leaks in your daily life. These are small habits and behaviors that gradually drain your energy throughout the day. Checking your phone obsessively, worrying about things you can't control, engaging in negative self-talk, trying to multitask, instead of focusing on one thing at a time. Each of these energy leaks might seem minor, but they add up over the course of a day, week, or month. Eliminating them can dramatically increase your overall energy levels and emotional resilience. One of the biggest energy leaks is mental rumination. This is when you replay past events or worry about future scenarios over and over in your mind. Rumination is completely unproductive because it doesn't change anything about what happened or what might happen, but it consumes enormous amounts of mental energy. When you catch yourself ruminating, consciously redirect your attention to the present moment. Focus on what you can control right now, instead of what you can't control in the past or future. Another major energy leak is trying to control things that are beyond your influence. You waste enormous amounts of energy trying to control other people's behavior, opinions, and decisions. You stress about outcomes that depend on factors outside your control. You worry about scenarios that may never happen. Learning to focus your energy only on things you can actually control is one of the most liberating shifts you can make. It allows you to direct your full power toward areas where you can actually create change instead of dissipating it in futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. Reclaiming your energy is not a selfish act. It's an act of self-respect. It's recognizing that your energy is valuable and deserves to be invested wisely. It's understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup. So keeping yourself energized is actually the most generous thing you can do for others. Chapter 9. Mastering Difficult People. Every day, you encounter people who test your emotional detachment. The manipulator who tries to guilt-trip you into doing what they want. The narcissist who makes everything about them. The drama queen who creates chaos wherever they go. The passive-aggressive person who says one thing but means another. The energy vampire who drains you with their constant complaints and negativity. Most people let difficult people control their emotional state. They get angry, frustrated, hurt, or anxious when dealing with challenging personalities. They take the bait when someone tries to provoke them. They get sucked into drama and manipulation. They let difficult people rent space in their head long after the interaction is over. But when you master emotional detachment, difficult people lose their power over you. You can interact with them without being affected by their behavior. You can handle their manipulation attempts without getting hooked. You can maintain your composure even when they're trying to push your buttons. The first key to mastering difficult people is understanding that their behavior is not about you. It's about them. When someone is manipulative, it's because they learned that manipulation was the only way to get their needs met. When someone is aggressive, it's because they feel powerless and are trying to regain control. When someone is passive-aggressive, it's because they're afraid of direct confrontation. Understanding the psychology behind difficult behavior helps you depersonalize it. You stop taking their actions as a personal attack and start seeing them as predictable responses based on their conditioning and emotional wounds. The second key is recognizing common manipulation tactics and refusing to engage with them. Guilt tripping is when someone tries to make you feel bad for not doing what they want. Gaslighting is when someone tries to make you question your own perception of reality. Emotional blackmail is when someone threatens negative consequences if you don't comply with their wishes. The secret to handling manipulation is to not defend yourself or explain your position. The moment you start justifying your choices or defending your boundaries, you've already lost. Manipulators are experts at turning your explanations against you and making you feel guilty for having boundaries in the first place. Instead, simply state your position clearly and refuse to elaborate. I'm not going to do that. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. Don't explain why. Don't justify your decision. Don't apologize for having boundaries. The third key is learning to stay emotionally neutral during difficult interactions. This doesn't mean becoming cold or robotic. It means maintaining your composure and not letting their emotional state dictate yours. If they're angry, you stay calm. If they're trying to create drama, you remain peaceful. If they're being negative, you maintain your positive energy. This emotional neutrality is incredibly powerful because it denies them the emotional reaction they're seeking. Most difficult behavior is an attempt to get attention, control, or an emotional response from others. When you refuse to give them what they're looking for, their behavior often stops because it's no longer serving its purpose. The fourth key is setting and enforcing clear boundaries. Boundaries are not suggestions or requests. They're non-negotiable limits that protect your well-being. When dealing with difficult people, you need to be crystal clear about what behavior you will and will not accept. If someone consistently violates your boundaries, you need to enforce consequences. This might mean limiting your contact with them, walking away from conversations that become disrespectful, or ending relationships that are consistently toxic. Many people are afraid to enforce boundaries because they don't want to seem mean or cause conflict. But allowing people to treat you poorly is not kindness. It's self-betrayal. You're not responsible for managing other people's emotions when you enforce reasonable boundaries. The fifth key is using the gray rock method with particularly toxic individuals. This technique involves becoming as boring and unresponsive as possible during interactions. You give short, neutral responses. You don't share personal information. You don't react emotionally to their provocations. You become so uninteresting that they eventually lose interest in targeting you. This method is particularly effective with narcissists and other personality-disordered individuals who feed off drama and emotional reactions. When you stop providing them with the entertainment they're seeking, they often move on to easier targets. The sixth key is developing selective empathy. Empathy is generally a positive trait, but when dealing with manipulative people, too much empathy can be exploited. They will use your compassion against you by playing the victim, making you feel sorry for them, or guilt-tripping you into enabling their behavior. Selective empathy means being able to understand someone's situation without feeling obligated to fix it or accommodate their dysfunction. You can acknowledge that someone has had a difficult life without accepting abusive behavior from them. You can feel compassion for their struggles without sacrificing your own well-being to help them. The seventh key is learning when to disengage completely. Some people are so toxic that the only way to protect yourself is to cut off contact entirely. This includes people who are consistently abusive, those who refuse to respect your boundaries, and individuals who drain your energy without adding any value to your life. Disengagement can be difficult, especially when the toxic person is a family member or someone you have to interact with regularly. But sometimes protecting your mental health and emotional well-being requires making hard choices about who you allow in your life. The final key is remembering that you cannot change other people. You might hope that if you're patient enough, kind enough, or understanding enough, difficult people will eventually change their behavior. But the truth is, people only change when they decide to change. And most difficult people have no interest in changing because their current behavior serves them in some way. Your job is not to fix difficult people or teach them how to behave better. Your job is to protect yourself, maintain your boundaries, and refuse to be drawn into their dysfunction. When you stop trying to change them and focus on managing your own responses, you reclaim your power and maintain your emotional detachment. Chapter 10. The Detached Life. Living a truly detached life doesn't mean becoming cold, isolated, or indifferent to the world around you. It means operating from a place of centered strength where you can engage fully with life while maintaining your emotional sovereignty. You care deeply about what matters while remaining unshaken by what doesn't. You love without losing yourself. You pursue goals without being destroyed by setbacks. You connect with others without becoming dependent on their approval. This is what ultimate freedom looks like. Freedom from the constant anxiety of seeking approval, freedom from the exhausting cycle of emotional reactivity, freedom from the desperate need to control outcomes, freedom from the fear of rejection, criticism, or failure. When you achieve this level of detachment, you become truly unstoppable. The detached life begins with accepting radical responsibility for your emotional state. This means acknowledging that no one else can make you feel anything. Other people's words, actions, and opinions are just external events. Your emotional response to these events is always your choice, even when it doesn't feel like it. This is perhaps the most difficult truth to accept, because it means you can no longer blame others for your emotional suffering. You can't say that someone made you angry, hurt, or sad. You can say that you chose to feel angry, hurt, or sad in response to their behavior. This shift from victim to creator is the foundation of emotional freedom. When you take radical responsibility, you also gain radical power. If your emotions are your choice, then you can choose different emotions. If your reactions are under your control, then you can choose better reactions. If your emotional state is your responsibility, then you can create the inner experience you want, regardless of external circumstances. The detached life also means developing unshakable inner peace. This isn't the temporary peace you feel when everything is going well. It's the deep peace that exists, regardless of what's happening around you. It's the peace that comes from knowing you can handle whatever life brings. It's the peace that comes from not needing external circumstances to be different for you to be okay. This inner peace is built through consistent practice of detachment skills. Every time you choose not to take something personally, you strengthen your peace. Every time you refuse to react emotionally to provocation, you deepen your calm. Every time you let go of the need to control outcomes, you expand your serenity. Living detached means becoming outcome independent. You pursue your goals with full commitment and effort, but you're not attached to specific results. You understand that you can control your actions, but not the outcomes. You measure success by the quality of your effort, not by whether you achieve exactly what you wanted. This outcome independence is incredibly liberating because it removes the fear of failure. When you're not attached to specific outcomes, failure becomes just feedback rather than a catastrophe. You can take risks, try new things, and push yourself to grow without being paralyzed by the possibility of not succeeding. The detached life also involves cultivating selective engagement. You choose carefully where to invest your time, energy, and attention. You engage deeply with people and activities that align with your values and support your growth. You politely disengage from people and situations that drain you or distract you from your priorities. This selectivity is not selfishness, it's wisdom. You recognize that your resources are finite and should be invested where they can have the greatest positive impact. You understand that saying yes to everything means saying no to what's most important. In relationships, detachment allows for deeper connection. Paradoxically, when you're not desperate for someone's approval, you can be authentic with them. When you're not trying to control their behavior, you can love them as they are. When you're not attached to specific outcomes in the relationship, you can be present and enjoy whatever unfolds. This creates much healthier relationship dynamics. You attract people who appreciate your authenticity rather than those who want to manipulate your neediness. You can set boundaries without guilt, and communicate honestly without fear. You can support others without losing yourself in their problems. The detached life means viewing challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to your well-being. Every difficult person you encounter is a chance to practice non-reaction. Every setback is an opportunity to develop resilience. Every criticism is a chance to strengthen your self-worth. Every rejection is practice for not taking things personally. This reframing transforms your entire relationship with adversity. Instead of trying to avoid challenges, you welcome them as training for your emotional strength. Instead of being devastated by setbacks, you're curious about what they can teach you. Instead of fearing criticism, you're interested in whatever useful information it might contain. Living detached also means maintaining perspective on the temporary nature of everything. Good times will pass, but so will bad times. Success will come and go, but so will failure. People will enter your life and leave it. Circumstances will constantly change. Understanding this impermanence helps you avoid getting too attached to temporary experiences. When good things happen, you enjoy them fully while they're present, but don't cling to them desperately. When bad things happen, you deal with them effectively while remembering that they won't last forever. This perspective creates emotional stability and resilience that most people never develop. The ultimate goal of the detached life is not to feel nothing, but to feel everything without being controlled by any of it. You can experience the full range of human emotions while maintaining your center. You can care deeply about people and causes while staying emotionally free. You can pursue ambitious goals while remaining at peace with whatever happens. This is true mastery. Not the suppression of emotion, but the conscious direction of emotional energy. Not the avoidance of connection, but the creation of connection from strength rather than neediness. Not the abandonment of goals, but the pursuit of goals from love rather than fear. When you live this way, you become a force of nature. You're unshakable in your confidence, unwavering in your values, and unstoppable in your pursuit of what matters to you. You inspire others through your example of what it looks like to be truly free. You create the life you want because you're no longer limited by the need for external approval or the fear of external rejection. This is your destiny, if you're willing to do the work. The question is not whether you can achieve this level of detachment, but whether you will commit to the daily practice required to build it. The choice is yours, but the power has always been within you. Chapter 11. The Daily Practice of Detachment. Emotional detachment is not something you achieve once and then maintain effortlessly for the rest of your life. It's a skill that requires daily practice, constant vigilance, and ongoing refinement. Most people make the mistake of thinking that understanding detachment intellectually is enough. But knowledge without consistent application is worthless. Your brain is wired for attachment. It's programmed to seek approval, avoid rejection, and react emotionally to perceived threats. These patterns have been reinforced for years, maybe decades. They won't disappear overnight just because you've decided to change. You need to consciously reprogram these patterns through deliberate daily practice. The first element of daily detachment practice is morning mental preparation. Before you engage with the world, before you check your phone, before you start reacting to external stimuli, you need to set your internal state. Spend the first 10 minutes of your day consciously choosing your emotional baseline for the day. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? How do I want to respond to challenges? What will I do when someone tries to provoke an emotional reaction from me? How will I handle criticism, rejection, or conflict? By preparing your mind in advance, you're much more likely to respond consciously rather than reactively when difficult situations arise. The second element is practicing emotional observation throughout the day. Set reminders on your phone to check in with yourself every few hours. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? Is this emotion based on facts or assumptions? Am I taking something personally that isn't actually about me? Am I trying to control something outside my influence? This regular self-monitoring helps you catch attachment patterns before they spiral out of control. Instead of getting swept away by emotions and realizing hours later that you've been controlled by external circumstances, you can intervene in real time and choose a different response. The third element is deliberate exposure practice. Just like building physical strength requires progressively challenging your muscles, building emotional strength requires progressively challenging your detachment skills. Look for opportunities to practice non-reaction, boundary setting, and emotional independence. Start small. If you usually check social media obsessively, practice going an hour without checking. If you typically seek validation after accomplishing something, practice acknowledging your achievement privately without sharing it. If you normally take criticism personally, practice hearing it as information instead of an attack. The fourth element is evening reflection and adjustment. Before you go to bed, review your day from a detachment perspective. When did you react emotionally instead of responding consciously? When did you seek external validation instead of relying on internal confidence? When did you take something personally that wasn't about you? Don't judge yourself harshly for these moments. They're learning opportunities. Ask yourself, what can I do differently tomorrow? What patterns do I notice? What triggers do I need to be more aware of? This reflection helps you continuously improve your emotional detachment skills. The fifth element is surrounding yourself with reminders and support systems. Your environment shapes your behavior more than you realize. If you're constantly surrounded by reactive, emotionally dependent people, you'll find it much harder to maintain detachment. If your social media feed is full of drama and validation seeking, you'll be pulled back into old patterns. Curate your environment intentionally. Follow accounts that promote emotional intelligence and personal growth. Spend more time with people who model healthy boundaries and emotional independence. Read books and listen to content that reinforces detachment principles. Create visual reminders in your space that prompt you to stay centered and non-reactive. The sixth element is regular mental conditioning through visualization. Professional athletes use mental rehearsal to prepare for high-pressure situations. You can use the same technique to prepare for emotional challenges. Spend a few minutes each day visualizing yourself handling difficult situations with perfect detachment. Imagine someone criticizing you and you responding with calm confidence. Visualize receiving rejection and feeling completely unaffected. See yourself setting boundaries firmly but kindly. Picture yourself staying centered during conflict or chaos. This mental rehearsal programs your subconscious to respond the way you want when these situations actually occur. The seventh element is studying your own patterns with scientific curiosity. Keep a journal of your emotional reactions and triggers. Notice patterns. Do you always get defensive with certain types of people? Do you always seek validation in specific situations? Do you always take certain kinds of feedback personally? Understanding your patterns gives you power over them. Once you know exactly when and how you tend to lose your detachment, you can prepare for those situations and choose different responses. The most important thing to understand about daily detachment practice is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Some days you'll feel completely centered and unshakable. Other days you'll react emotionally to things that normally wouldn't bother you. This is normal and expected. The goal is not perfection, it's progress. Every time you choose to pause instead of react, every time you refuse to take something personally, every time you maintain your boundaries under pressure, you're strengthening your emotional detachment muscles. Over time, these responses become more automatic and natural. Remember that people around you may resist your emotional detachment, especially if they're used to being able to manipulate your emotions. They might try harder to provoke reactions when their old tactics stop working. They might accuse you of being cold or uncaring when you stop absorbing their emotional states. This resistance is actually evidence that your detachment practice is working. Don't let other people's reactions pull you back into old patterns. Stay committed to your growth even when it makes others uncomfortable. The daily practice of detachment is ultimately about becoming the person you want to be regardless of external circumstances. It's about developing such strong inner stability that nothing outside of you can shake your core peace and confidence. This is not just a nice idea. It's a trainable skill that will transform every aspect of your life if you commit to practicing it consistently. Chapter 12. Detached relationships. One of the biggest misconceptions about emotional detachment is that it means becoming cold, distant, or incapable of love. People think that if you're not emotionally reactive, you can't form deep connections. This is completely wrong. Detached relationships are actually the healthiest, most fulfilling relationships possible because they're based on choice rather than neediness, on love rather than fear, on mutual respect rather than emotional manipulation. Most relationships are built on emotional dependency. People stay together because they're afraid of being alone, because they need someone to validate them, because they've become addicted to the emotional highs and lows of drama. They confuse intensity with intimacy, jealousy with love, and possessiveness with caring. Detached relationships are different. They're characterized by emotional independence, where both people can be happy and fulfilled on their own, but choose to share their lives because they genuinely enjoy each other's company. There's no desperation, no manipulation, no walking on eggshells to avoid conflict. In a detached relationship, you love the other person for who they are, not for what they do for you. You don't try to change them or control their behavior. You don't take their moods personally or feel responsible for their happiness. You support them without losing yourself in their problems. The first principle of detached relationships is maintaining your individual identity. Too many people lose themselves in relationships. They stop pursuing their own interests, abandon their personal goals, and mold themselves into whatever they think their partner wants. This creates an unhealthy dynamic, where one or both people become dependent on the relationship for their sense of self. In a detached relationship, you maintain your own interests, goals, and social connections. You have a rich life outside the relationship that would continue to fulfill you even if the relationship ended. This isn't selfish or uncommitted. It's healthy. It means you're choosing to be in the relationship rather than needing to be in it. The second principle is emotional non-absorption. In most relationships, when one person is upset, the other person automatically becomes upset too. When one person is stressed, their stress spreads to their partner. This emotional contagion creates unnecessary suffering and prevents both people from thinking clearly during difficult times. In detached relationships, you can be empathetic and supportive without absorbing your partner's emotional state. If they're having a bad day, you can listen and offer support without letting their mood ruin your day. If they're anxious about something, you can help them problem solve without becoming anxious yourself. The third principle is outcome independence in the relationship itself. This means you're fully committed to giving your best to the relationship while being emotionally prepared for any outcome, including the relationship ending. This might sound contradictory, but it's actually what makes true commitment possible. When you're attached to the relationship continuing at all costs, you become willing to compromise your values, ignore red flags, and accept poor treatment just to avoid the possibility of breakup. But when you're outcome independent, you can be authentic, set boundaries, and address problems honestly because you're not afraid of the relationship ending if it's not truly compatible. The fourth principle is refusing to engage in emotional manipulation or drama. Healthy relationships shouldn't feel like emotional roller coasters. If your partner tries to guilt trip you, give you the silent treatment, threaten to leave when they don't get their way, or use any other manipulative tactics, you don't play along. In detached relationships, you communicate directly and honestly. When there's conflict, you address it rationally without attacking each other's character or bringing up past grievances. You focus on solving problems rather than winning arguments or making each other feel bad. The fifth principle is accepting your partner as they are, rather than trying to change them. Most relationship problems come from one or both people trying to turn their partner into someone different. They think their partner would be perfect if they just lost weight, made more money, were more social, were less social, or changed some other fundamental aspect of themselves. Detached relationships are based on acceptance. You love your partner for who they are right now, not for who they might become if they change. If there are fundamental incompatibilities, you address them honestly rather than hoping the other person will transform to meet your expectations. The sixth principle is maintaining healthy boundaries, even in intimate relationships. Just because you love someone doesn't mean they have unlimited access to your time, energy, or emotional space. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you have to tolerate disrespectful behavior or sacrifice your own well-being. Boundaries in relationships might include maintaining your own friendships and interests, not allowing your partner to speak to you disrespectfully, keeping some aspects of your life private, and not being available for every emotional crisis. These boundaries actually strengthen relationships by preventing resentment and maintaining mutual respect. The seventh principle is supporting without saving. In healthy relationships, you support your partner's growth and goals without trying to rescue them from every difficulty. You encourage them to solve their own problems rather than solving problems for them. You offer emotional support during challenging times without taking responsibility for their emotional well-being. This is particularly important when dating or married to someone who has personal issues like addiction, financial irresponsibility, or emotional instability. You can be compassionate and supportive without enabling their destructive behavior or sacrificing your own life to manage their problems. Detached relationships require both people to be emotionally mature and willing to take responsibility for their own happiness. If you're in a relationship with someone who is emotionally dependent, manipulative, or unwilling to respect boundaries, you may need to make difficult decisions about whether the relationship is healthy for you. The beautiful thing about detached relationships is that they create space for genuine love to flourish. When you're not desperate for approval, not trying to control each other, and not lost in emotional drama, you can actually see and appreciate your partner for who they truly are. You can enjoy their company without needing them to complete you. You can love them without losing yourself. Chapter 13. Professional detachment. Your career and professional life are among the areas where emotional attachment can be most destructive to your success and well-being. The workplace is full of politics, ego battles, unfair treatment, and people who will try to manipulate or intimidate you. If you take every slight personally, seek validation from your boss, or tie your self-worth to your job performance, you'll be constantly stressed, and your career growth will be limited. Professional detachment doesn't mean not caring about your work or not striving for excellence. It means separating your identity from your job, not taking workplace dynamics personally, and maintaining your emotional center regardless of what's happening in your professional environment. The first aspect of professional detachment is understanding that your worth as a human being is not determined by your job title, salary, or professional achievements. Too many people build their entire identity around their career. They introduce themselves by their job title, measure their success purely by professional metrics, and feel worthless when they experience career setbacks. This attachment to professional identity makes you vulnerable to manipulation and keeps you trapped in situations that aren't serving you. If your self-worth depends on your job, you'll tolerate poor treatment, work excessive hours, and sacrifice your personal life just to maintain your professional status. Professional detachment means recognizing that your job is something you do, not who you are. You can be fully committed to performing well while maintaining perspective that work is just one aspect of your life, not the totality of your identity. The second aspect is not taking workplace politics and interpersonal dynamics personally. Every workplace has difficult personalities, unfair treatment, and politics. There will always be people who don't like you, managers who don't appreciate your contributions, and situations where you're treated unjustly. When you're professionally detached, you understand that most workplace behavior is about the other person's insecurities, ambitions, and personal issues, not about you. The colleague who takes credit for your ideas isn't reflecting your inadequacy, they're revealing their own insecurity. The boss who micromanages isn't commenting on your competence, they're expressing their own need for control. The third aspect is being outcome independent in your career goals. This means working hard and smart toward your objectives while being emotionally prepared for any result. You apply for promotions knowing you might not get them. You start projects knowing they might not succeed. You share ideas knowing they might be rejected or ignored. This outcome independence actually makes you more likely to succeed because you're not paralyzed by fear of failure. You can take calculated risks, speak up in meetings, and pursue challenging opportunities because your emotional well-being isn't tied to specific outcomes. The fourth aspect is maintaining professional boundaries. This includes not working excessive hours just to please others, not accepting abusive treatment from bosses or colleagues, not participating in gossip or office drama, and not allowing work stress to consume your personal life. Many people struggle with professional boundaries because they're afraid of being seen as uncommitted or difficult. But clear boundaries actually increase your professional effectiveness because they force you to focus on what's truly important and prevent you from burning out. The fifth aspect is handling criticism and feedback without emotional reactivity. In your career, you'll receive plenty of criticism, some of it constructive and some of it unfair. Your ability to receive feedback without becoming defensive or taking it personally will largely determine your professional growth. When someone criticizes your work, your first instinct might be to justify yourself, point out their mistakes, or feel hurt by their comments. Professional detachment means listening objectively to see if there's useful information in the feedback while not allowing their opinion to shake your confidence or self-worth. The sixth aspect is not seeking excessive validation from supervisors or colleagues. Many people are addicted to workplace praise and approval. They constantly seek reassurance about their performance, fish for compliments, and feel anxious when they don't receive regular positive feedback. This need for validation makes you appear insecure and gives others power over your emotional state. Professional detachment means validating your own work quality and finding internal satisfaction in doing excellent work, regardless of whether others acknowledge it. The seventh aspect is strategic networking rather than emotional networking. Many people approach professional networking from a place of desperation, trying to get others to like them or hoping someone will rescue their career. This neediness is obvious and off-putting to potential mentors or collaborators. Professional detachment means networking from a place of strength, focusing on what value you can provide rather than what you can get. You build genuine professional relationships based on mutual respect and shared interests rather than manipulation or desperation. The eighth aspect is handling workplace setbacks without personalizing them. You'll experience failures, rejections, layoffs, and disappointments in your career. Your ability to bounce back from these setbacks without internalizing them as personal inadequacy will determine your long-term success. When you don't get a promotion, it might be due to budget constraints, office politics, timing, or simply not being the right fit for that particular role. Professional detachment means extracting whatever lessons are available from the experience while not allowing it to damage your confidence or derail your career trajectory. The ninth aspect is being willing to leave situations that aren't serving your growth or well-being. Many people stay in toxic work environments because they're attached to the security, status, or identity that their job provides. They tolerate abusive bosses, dead-end roles, or companies with values that conflict with their own. Professional detachment gives you the emotional freedom to make career changes when necessary. You can leave a job that isn't aligned with your goals without feeling like you're giving up your identity. You can take calculated risks because your worth isn't tied to any particular position or company. The final aspect is maintaining perspective on the temporary nature of all professional situations. Companies go through changes, bosses leave, industries evolve, and economic conditions shift. The problems that seem overwhelming today will likely be irrelevant in a few years. Professional detachment means engaging fully with your current work responsibilities while maintaining awareness that nothing in your career is permanent. This perspective helps you avoid getting too attached to specific roles, companies, or career paths that may not serve you indefinitely. When you master professional detachment, you become much more effective in your career because you're operating from confidence rather than fear, from strength rather than neediness. You can take risks, speak truthfully, and pursue ambitious goals because your emotional well-being isn't held hostage by professional outcomes. Chapter 14. Crisis. Proof. Detachment. The true test of your emotional detachment comes not during ordinary times, but during major life crises. When you lose a job, end a significant relationship, face health problems, experience financial difficulties, or deal with family emergencies, your natural tendency will be to abandon all the detachment skills you've developed and fall back into old patterns of emotional reactivity and attachment. Crisis situations trigger your most primitive survival instincts. Your brain interprets these challenges as threats to your existence and floods your system with stress hormones that make rational thinking difficult. This is when most people lose their emotional center and make decisions based on fear, desperation, and attachment to specific outcomes. But crisis is also when emotional detachment becomes most valuable. The people who navigate major life challenges most successfully are those who can maintain their inner stability while everything around them is chaotic. They can think clearly when others are panicking, make rational decisions when others are purely emotional, and find opportunities when others see only problems. The first principle of crisis-proof detachment is accepting that crises are inevitable parts of life. Most people live in denial about this reality. They believe that if they work hard, follow the rules, and make good choices, they can avoid major difficulties. When crisis inevitably strikes, they're emotionally unprepared and feel victimized by circumstances. Crisis-proof detachment means understanding that challenges, setbacks, and unexpected difficulties are normal human experiences. This doesn't make you pessimistic or paranoid. It makes you emotionally prepared. When problems arise, you're not shocked or devastated because you know this is simply part of the human condition. The second principle is distinguishing between what you can control and what you can't during emergencies. Crisis situations often involve many factors that are completely outside your influence. The economy crashes, someone gets sick, a natural disaster occurs, a relationship ends. Your ability to navigate these situations successfully depends entirely on focusing your energy on what you can actually control. During any crisis, ask yourself, what aspects of this situation can I influence? What actions can I take that might improve the outcome? What is completely outside my control that I need to accept? This clarity allows you to channel your energy productively instead of wasting it on futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. The third principle is maintaining long-term perspective during short-term difficulties. When you're in the middle of a crisis, it's easy to believe that the current situation is permanent or that things will never improve. This catastrophic thinking makes you more likely to make desperate decisions that create additional problems. Crisis-proof detachment means remembering that all situations are temporary. The financial difficulty you're experiencing today will eventually resolve. The relationship crisis you're facing will either be worked through or lead to a different arrangement. The health problem you're dealing with will either improve or you'll adapt to a new normal. The fourth principle is using crisis as an opportunity for growth rather than just survival. Most people approach difficult times with a victim mentality, asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and focusing solely on getting back to their previous situation. But crisis often contains opportunities for positive change that wouldn't have been possible during stable times. Job loss might lead to starting your own business or changing careers to something more fulfilling. Relationship problems might force you to develop better communication skills or recognize incompatibilities that needed to be addressed. Health challenges might motivate lifestyle changes that improve your overall well-being. The fifth principle is maintaining emotional stability while others around you panic. During major crises, most people become emotionally reactive, which creates additional chaos and makes problem-solving more difficult. Your ability to remain calm and centered becomes a tremendous asset not only to yourself, but to others who depend on you. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It means feeling whatever you need to feel, while maintaining your ability to think clearly and make rational decisions. You can acknowledge that a situation is difficult or scary while refusing to let fear control your actions. The sixth principle is avoiding desperation-based decisions during crisis periods. When people feel threatened or scared, they often make choices they would never consider under normal circumstances. They take jobs they hate, stay in destructive relationships, or compromise their values just to feel more secure. Crisis-proof detachment means maintaining your standards and values even during difficult times. You might need to be more flexible about timelines or methods, but you don't abandon your core principles. You make decisions based on long-term wisdom rather than short-term fear. The seventh principle is building support systems before you need them. Many people wait until they're in crisis to reach out for help, but this is often when others are least able or willing to assist. Crisis-proof detachment means cultivating relationships and resources during good times that can support you during challenging periods. This includes building financial reserves, maintaining friendships that aren't based on what you can do for others, developing skills that increase your adaptability, and creating multiple sources of security rather than depending on any single factor. The eighth principle is extracting wisdom from every crisis experience. Each major challenge you navigate successfully increases your confidence in your ability to handle future difficulties. Each crisis teaches you something about yourself, reveals strengths you didn't know you had, or shows you areas where you need to grow. Keep a record of how you successfully navigated past crises. What strategies worked? What mistakes did you make that you can avoid in the future? What did you learn about your own resilience and capabilities? This documentation becomes a resource you can draw on during future challenges. The final principle is maintaining faith in your ability to adapt and overcome regardless of circumstances. Crisis-proof detachment isn't based on the belief that bad things won't happen to you. It's based on confidence that you can handle whatever does happen. This confidence isn't arrogance or denial. It's earned through experience and developed through practice. Every time you successfully navigate a difficult situation, you prove to yourself that you're more resilient than you thought. Every time you make it through a crisis without compromising your values or losing your center, you build evidence that you can be trusted to handle future challenges. When you develop crisis-proof detachment, you become someone who others turn to during difficult times. You become a source of stability and wisdom when everything else feels uncertain. Most importantly, you become truly free because you're no longer controlled by fear of what might happen or desperation to maintain specific circumstances. Chapter 15. The Transformed Life. After months or years of practicing emotional detachment, something profound happens. You wake up one day and realize that you're no longer the same person you used to be. The thoughts that once consumed you no longer have power over you. The people who once controlled your emotions can no longer push your buttons. The situations that once devastated you now feel manageable. You've become emotionally sovereign. You've taken back your power. You've broken free from the invisible chains that once bound you to other people's opinions, moods, and behaviors. This isn't just an improvement in your life. It's a complete transformation of who you are and how you experience reality. The transformed life doesn't mean you never experience difficult emotions or challenging situations. It means you experience them from a place of strength rather than victimhood. You feel sadness without being consumed by it. You experience anger without losing control. You face rejection without questioning your worth. You encounter criticism without becoming defensive. Your relationships become healthier because you're no longer desperate for approval or afraid of abandonment. You attract people who appreciate your authenticity rather than those who want to manipulate your neediness. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can support others without enabling their dysfunction. Your career becomes more fulfilling because you're making decisions based on your values and long-term goals rather than fear and the need for external validation. You can take calculated risks because your self-worth isn't tied to specific outcomes. You can speak up in meetings because you're not afraid of disapproval. You can leave situations that aren't serving you because you're not attached to maintaining others' perception of your success. Your inner life becomes peaceful because you're no longer at war with reality. You accept what you cannot change while taking full responsibility for what you can control. You stop wasting energy on resentment, worry, and attempts to control other people. You find contentment that doesn't depend on external circumstances. But perhaps the most significant change is the quality of your presence. When you're emotionally detached, you become fully present in a way that most people never experience. You're not mentally rehearsing what you're going to say next, or worrying about how others are perceiving you. You're not replaying past conversations, or anxiously anticipating future scenarios. This presence is magnetic. People feel seen and heard when they're with you, because you're actually listening instead of waiting for your turn to seek validation. You become someone others confide in because they sense that you won't judge them or try to fix their problems. You become a source of calm in a world full of reactive, needy people. The transformed life also brings clarity about what actually matters. When you're no longer distracted by the constant noise of emotional reactivity, you can see your life's direction more clearly. You understand what brings you genuine fulfillment versus what you thought would make you happy. You can distinguish between goals that align with your authentic self and those that were driven by the need to impress others. This clarity leads to more intentional living. You stop saying yes to things you don't actually want to do. You stop pursuing achievements that don't align with your values. You stop maintaining relationships that drain your energy without adding value to your life. Every choice becomes more conscious and deliberate. The transformed life includes the ability to enjoy success without attachment and handle failure without devastation. When good things happen, you appreciate them fully while understanding they're temporary. When bad things happen, you deal with them effectively while knowing they don't define you. This creates extraordinary resilience. You become someone who can navigate any situation with grace and confidence. Others may crumble under pressure, but you remain stable. Others may panic during crises, but you maintain perspective. Others may be destroyed by rejection or criticism, but you extract whatever useful information is available and move forward. The financial benefits of emotional detachment are often underestimated. When you're not spending money trying to impress others or seeking retail therapy for emotional problems, you naturally become more financially responsible. When you're not afraid of taking calculated risks, you can pursue opportunities that build wealth. When you're not attached to maintaining a certain lifestyle to please others, you can make practical financial decisions. Your health improves because chronic stress from emotional reactivity takes a tremendous toll on your body. When you stop absorbing other people's emotions, stop worrying constantly about things you can't control, and stop seeking validation through unhealthy behaviors, your physical well-being naturally improves. The transformed life also includes deep compassion for others who are still trapped in emotional dependency. You remember what it felt like to be controlled by other people's opinions. You understand the pain of seeking validation that never comes. You recognize the exhaustion of constantly trying to manage other people's emotions. This compassion doesn't make you a savior or enabler. You don't try to rescue people from their emotional patterns because you understand that transformation must come from within. But you can be a living example of what's possible when someone commits to emotional growth. Perhaps most importantly, the transformed life includes unshakable inner peace. This isn't the absence of challenges or difficulties. It's the presence of deep knowing that you can handle whatever life brings. It's the confidence that comes from having faced your fears and discovered they were largely illusions. It's the serenity that comes from accepting reality as it is, rather than demanding it be different. This peace radiates outward and affects everyone you encounter. You become a stabilizing presence in others' lives without trying to be. You become someone others aspire to emulate because they can sense your freedom, even if they can't articulate what makes you different. The transformed life is not an end destination. It's an ongoing journey. You continue to face new challenges that test your detachment skills. You continue to discover deeper layers of attachment that need to be released. You continue to refine your ability to love without losing yourself, to care without becoming desperate, to engage fully with life while maintaining your emotional center. But once you've tasted this freedom, once you've experienced what it feels like to be emotionally sovereign, there's no going back to the old way of living. You can never again tolerate being controlled by other people's moods, opinions, or behaviors. You can never again accept the exhausting cycle of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. You have become the person you were always meant to be. Confident without arrogance, strong without rigidity, loving without desperation, present without neediness, free without isolation. This is your birthright. This is what's possible when you commit to taking back your power and living as an emotionally detached, fully alive human being. The choice is still yours. The power has always been within you. The only question is whether you'll use it.